Right, in order to be able to drive a van for Lakeside from this day forward, there's some new requirements that have to be met and maintained in order to keep your driving status current. One of the first things is there is currently and has always been an age requirement on drivers. You must be at least 23 years of age and have been driving for at least 5 years. So if you got your driver's license at age 21 and you're 24, you're still not eligible to drive. So if that is you, you can leave now, and you don't have to sit through this class. You must hold a valid Virginia driver's license to be able to drive the vans. Commercial license is ideal. I know we have a few people in here with their commercial license. Those are always very helpful because of the training that goes along with that. Acceptable motor vehicle records will meet the following guidelines. No major violations within the last 5 years, and the driver does not exceed the following: 3 minor violations and no fault accidents in the past 3 years, 1 at-fault accident and 1 minor violation in the past 3 years, or 3 no-fault accidents in the last 5 years. So those are the requirements. DMV will be sending us reports. If you get a few knocks on your record, we will get a report of that. We also ask you that if for some reason you have a reckless driving ticket, okay, we need to know that because that will get you removed from driving the vehicles here. The major violations are listed there for you so that you understand what those are. If you get a DUI, if you have a, if you run from the cops, those types of things, those will have you removed. Minor violations are just minor speeding violations, but if you get more than 3 of those in a 3-year period, we're going to go ahead and ask you not to drive the vans, because there's obviously a pattern of behavior that's going on there that we don't want to have behind the wheel of our vehicles and operating with our children. If you want to flip the page over, we are going to require driver's training, not on an annual basis, and our hopes is to just videotape updates to driver training that you can watch and sign off on in the future. We figured since this was the first one, it would give us an opportunity to get everybody together. Some of the things we want to make you aware of as you're driving these vehicles: these are not cars, okay? And so we all understand that, but sometimes we have to know that we cannot operate these like we would our tiny little cars. These are high-profile vehicles, and they're susceptible to certain issues. So when we're driving, we always want to make sure that we're driving defensively, which simply means not being aggressive in your driving, being patient, allowing other vehicles to have access to lanes. If you see a big truck with its turn signal on, slowing down, letting him come in, not pushing up past him as he cuts you off and drives you into the berm. It's being smart when you're driving. It's making sure that you're driving at a safe rate of speed, staying in one lane for as much as possible. If traffic's really heavy and there's a bunch of different speeds of vehicles, sometimes that becomes difficult, but not weaving in and out of traffic. Because for most of us here, we're driving a very precious cargo. Most of us are driving other people's children. And so we have to remember that, and so we have to keep our driving skills under control. Speed management. We want to make sure that we maintain an appropriate speed for the conditions that exist. I would say if it's a clear sunny day like today, drive the speed limit. There was a recommendation on here that said, and one of the things I was looking at that said the 15-passenger van should not exceed 60 miles an hour. I think that's dangerous if you're on a 70-mile-an-hour interstate, because all of a sudden you're the one causing everything to whip around you. Drive the speed limit if the conditions are fine for the speed limit. If there are conditions that are not appropriate for a higher rate of speed, slow down. It's better that you get to your destination a few minutes late than you not get to your destination at all. We're going to talk a little bit more in detail about extreme driving conditions towards the end of our conversation. But understanding while you're driving these issues that center of gravity and weight distribution is a big deal. Okay? These vans are top heavy. Okay, now we have the particular types of vans. Our Ford vans have a little bit wider wheelbase than some of the other brands of vehicles out there. So there's a little bit better balance in those, but you have to remember that if you have that thing packed full of teenagers, there's a good tendency that that's going to sway a little bit. And if you take a corner too fast, you could potentially roll that thing over, because what do teenagers like to do when you take a corner too quick? They'll like to lean to one side and then hit the person next to them, right, and squish them. Well, that throws the vehicle to one side, and you can lose control very easily. So maintaining proper speed, not going around corners too fast, making sure that the students are all sitting spread out across the vehicle is a good thing to always make sure you have happening. Space management is simply making sure that you got good distance between you and the vehicle in front of you. You can't do much about the guy behind you, but the vehicle in front of you, making sure you keep and maintain a safe distance at all times, making sure that you're not riding up on somebody's bumper and getting them irritated at you and getting you irritated at them. Remember that they have a little bit wider turning radius. I don't like to see those big yellow marks down the side of the van because you turned a corner too tight and there was one of those little yellow poles there. They will tend to buckle the side of the van. So make sure you have plenty of room to turn wide around tight corners. Parking, you need to be careful when parking these vans. I will own up and fess up. Right after we bought these new vans, I put a nice crease in the top of one of the vans. I was in a parking garage. It was plenty high enough for our vehicles, but what I did not see is that the water sprinkler line came down and turned, and in my rear view mirror I could see the water sprinkler line. I knew it was high enough, but I didn't see that it turned down right in the middle of my vehicle, and I backed into that. So I should have had somebody out there helping me to back into that space so that I could park. It's a good idea that when you're parking or when you're trying to turn those vehicles around, if it's a really tight area, put somebody outside the van. Have a spotter that's giving you direction, that helps you to know how much distance you have so that you don't actually accidentally drop off into a ditch or run into something that you don't see behind you. So making sure that there are people that are going to help you to see what's around you. Flip over to the next page. Again, backing can be difficult, making sure that there's somebody out there to help you as you have those blind spots. I mean, these vehicles, if they're full of people, and if you have little kids, it's a little easier, but if you have adults or teenagers, you're not going to be able to see really well through them because they have big heads. And so you have to have somebody to help you get into the proper spaces and adjustments. Loading and unloading passengers. I know for our seniors, we have extra stools, but be careful when you're loading students and loading kids into the vans, making sure that they're getting into their seats, they're getting in properly, making sure that they're buckling up. We'll get into that a little bit more in a few minutes. Making sure that you're in a safe place to load and unload the vehicles. You don't want to try and unload and unload vehicles in traffic. Okay? What do you call those things? Chinese fire drills? Really bad idea. Okay? In fact, I highly recommend that you don't do those. Ever. 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 Okay? I know a youth pastor that lost his job for doing a Chinese fire drill. Okay? The police frown on those. I would say don't do those. Emergency maneuvers. Okay? If you are in a situation where you have to make an emergency maneuver, that is the time that you're going to get into the most trouble in a vehicle like this, because they don't respond like a car. They don't stop as fast. They don't maneuver as easily. And when you do maneuver them quickly, you have a hazard of rolling them over. So when you're in a situation where something happens in front of you, and we've all been there, right? You're driving down the road and all of a sudden traffic just stops. And you have to do something. The best thing for you to do is slowly get on to the brakes and look for in your mirrors a place to pull the vehicle over to. I mean, if you're going to hit the person in front of you, you want to try and gently turn either one direction or another. You don't want to jerk the steering wheel. Jerk the steering wheel, you're killing people on board your van. Okay, you're going to roll it over. There's just no way to stop that. So making sure that you don't make any quick moves. I mean, worst case, probably the better case scenario is hit the person in front of you. At least then people should be in seat belts. They're going to have a little bit of injury, but you're not going to roll the vehicle over. If you think the only option you have is to have a wreck, make sure it's something that's head on and not rolling the vehicle over. Animal hazards. Thumper and Bambi are out in the road playing. You're driving down the road and they decide to jump in the middle of the road and play. What do you do?
Hit them.
Hit them. Do not swerve. If you can slow down and avoid them, fine. Do not slam on your brakes to try and avoid the animal. Do not swerve the vehicle to try and avoid the animal. You hit the animal. Okay? Make that clear enough? Because if you swerve to avoid, your chances of losing control of that vehicle is great. So you make sure that you hit the animals. Braking in a 15-passenger or 12-passenger van, it's going to take you extra distance. You should be maintaining a proper, safe distance between you and the vehicles in front of you. Do not follow too close to the vehicles in front of you because something can happen, especially if you're traveling on the interstate. If you're traveling 65 or 70 miles an hour and all of a sudden traffic stops because a boulder fell out off a side of a hill and landed in the road, you've got to make a quick move. If you don't have enough space between you and the car in front of you, you're going to be in trouble. Sir?
All the vans do have ABS, right?
All the vans have ABS. They're all newer vans, so you don't want to pump the brakes. You just want to hit them and let the ABS take control. So when you push on the brake, put steady pressure on the brake. Try not to slam on the brake. Do not pump the brakes, okay, because that takes the ABS out of the equation. If you find yourself in a skid, you hit some water, or for some reason you hit some ice, don't brake. Get your foot off the gas. Try and keep the steering wheel straight. Don't steer through it. Just try and keep it straight. Try and correct a little bit if you're in a slight skid or a turn, but try and keep it straight. On pre-trip checks, I think it's a good idea to walk around the van before you get in and take off, especially if you're going any kind of distance. You know, when we take the vans to Chicago, I usually have them scheduled to be into Mike Pillis's before we take all the summer trips with the youth, so we've had a mechanic look them over. One of the things with us is we do have our vans in the shop on a regular basis. We have them looked over. We make sure they're in good running order. That doesn't mean that something's not going to happen, but it means that we have our eyes on the vehicles. Look at the tires. Make sure the tires look properly inflated. Make sure the tires aren't showing signs of dry rot. We replace tires around here when they dry rot, not when the tread wears out. Just because we don't wear the tread out, we don't drive them enough. So we end up dry rotting the tires, and that's when you get all the cracks along the edge of the tire. We end up replacing them. We just replaced three of the vans last year. 3 of the vans last year. So that's something that we do on a regular basis. Make sure there's nothing leaking out of the vehicle. If you walk out and you look under a vehicle and there's a big puddle of something, notify somebody. Come back into the church office and say, there's a big pile of something under the vehicle. We'll go out and check and see what it is. If the vehicle's just been running, it's in the summertime, it might just be water from the condensate from the air conditioner. It might be a slow leak in a brake line, and so we don't want to use that vehicle. It might be a transmission fluid issue. If so, we don't want to use that vehicle. It might be oil, and if there's a leak somewhere in the oil system, we might not want to use that vehicle. And swap out vehicles. We should have extra vehicles. Look for signs of damage. If there's a big crack in the windshield, let us know, because sometimes we don't know that that's there because we're not driving the vans that frequently. If you're in the van and a rock hits your windshield, let us know. We'll get the windshield replaced. Or if we can get it patched, we'll get it patched. Make sure that the windshield wipers are working. Okay? Get in the van, turn them on, make sure they squeak back and forth. We typically have them checked when we have the vehicles checked each year, and we typically will replace them if they're worn. If you're driving a van and you're in a rainstorm and you're using the windshield wipers and they're just making a mess of the windshield, let us know. And then we'll have them replaced. Make sure the seat belts are working, okay? Especially you with little kids. Make sure that those seat belts are working. Make sure that the little buckle part hasn't fallen through the seat. I remember the old vans, they used to happen all the time. We'd have to stuff them back up through the seats. If you don't have enough seat belts, don't take that vehicle. Okay, let us know. Start the engine, make sure it's sounding reasonable. Okay, if it's making a big clunking noise, don't take off. Come and tell somebody. Passenger safety and protection. We have these things in almost every van. We should have them in every van. There's a kit in the back of every van that has all kinds of safety equipment in it, jumper cables, shovels, gloves, camera for some reason, emergency flares, and road hazard signs. These are in all the vans. We've bought them for all the vans. If there's one that you see a van and they're not in it, let us know. We want to make sure that these things are in the vans and that they're there in case you have a need. We're looking at putting fire extinguishers in all the vans. They are in the buses, but we're looking at putting a small fire extinguisher in the van. If you should have something happen while you're out on the road, and the van breaks down, get the van to the side of the road, unload the passengers, and get them away from the van. Brenda and I had that experience when we were going to camp one year. Van blew a radiator right through the toll booth in West Virginia, in Beckley. And so you get the kids out of the van, get them away from the vehicle, because you don't know what's going to happen. We all see those YouTube videos where there's a car on the side of the road and some big truck, swerves and hits it. Make sure the kids are out of the vehicle, make sure the passengers are out of the vehicle. Check the vehicle, make the appropriate phone calls. In each vehicle, there should be, and hopefully it's up to date, but insurance information in an envelope on the clipboard in every vehicle. And it should have contact information. It's got my phone number on there, and it should have contact information for the insurance company if you have some type of an accident. Okay, so make sure that you protect the people that are on the vehicle with you. Driver distractions or classroom distractions. Driver distractions. One of the biggest causes of accidents in the U.S. today is distracted driving. No cell phone use while driving. That means phone calls, text messaging, Twitter, Snapchat, taking pictures. You just don't use it, okay? You keep your hands on the steering wheel. Typically when I'm driving to Chicago, my wife has my phone, or it's right in the thing. She communicates with the vans behind me or in front of me if there's something that we need to communicate. And I always tell her, like when we were driving to Chicago this year, she would call Kaylin. Kaylin was the passenger in the other van next to the driver. Let the person who's next to you do the texting and phone calls and anything that has to be done, because we know that 95% of our text messages and phone calls do not have to be answered at that moment. Although for some reason in our society, we are obsessed with urgency. Oh, somebody texted me. It must be important. And so all of a sudden we're texting back. No, it's not that important. Those lives of those kids are that important. Leave your cell phone down. And do not use that while you are driving. Don't eat while you're driving. One of my favorite things to do. Now, if you got a little snack of popcorn there or something, I'm not going to be that upset. But you shouldn't be eating, a hamburger and have both hands. And you got your knees on the wheel and you're running down the road trying to eat your hamburger or a steak. That's just weird. Chinese. Plan to eat before you drive, or if you're on a trip, stop. If everybody else can take theirs on, you quickly eat yours and then get back on the vehicle and then start traveling again. This is a big one. Limit distractions from passengers. Okay. The vehicles can get loud. Your kids, especially if you're carting around teenagers, that doesn't help. If you're carting around teenagers, they can get loud and rambunctious and boisterous. If at all possible, have an additional adult supervisor in the vehicle with you while you're driving. Lori, is that possible for after-school care? Or is it just one driver per van? Okay. Well, for you folks, train your kids from the beginning of the year. You sit down, you be quiet until we get back to the church. Because if they're screaming and yelling and something's going on around you, you don't need to be distracted by some kid screaming and yelling if some car is running a red light or something like that. You need to be able to pay attention to the road. So train the kids to sit quietly and to be that way until you arrive at your destination. Don't play around with the radio. Okay, I know a couple of the vans have the aux-in cables, and you can, get on your Pandora or your whatever those music things are called, or you can get on your iPhone and play your music. You shouldn't be doing that if you're driving. Again, let the passenger do that. Okay, let the person sitting in the passenger seat. And then if you're taking a long trip, don't drive tired. If you're tired, pull over. Get out, walk around the vehicle. Again, you're better off to show up 15 minutes late to your destination than to not show up at all. So don't drive while you're tired. Roadside assistance, again, we just went over that a little bit. If something happens and you need maintenance, call one of us at the church and we'll see what we can do to help you out. Brenda, this is a question I have. Does our insurance company have roadside assistance? Okay. I know my Nationwide does, so that's a very good company to use. So we'll just give us a call and we'll see about getting somebody out there to help you. If you're driving at night, don't drive while you're fatigued. Drive at a reasonable rate of speed. If you're on some backcountry West Virginia hick road and you're winding through some weird roads, don't be flying through there at 50 miles an hour, even if the speed limit's 50 miles an hour. Slow down a little bit, because what's going to happen at night? Visibility is less. You're going to have animals out on the side of the road. You potentially could have people out walking or riding their horses if you're in West Virginia, or whatever could happen. So, yeah. So be careful when you're driving at night and watch your blind spots. These things have huge blind spots. Make sure your mirrors are set before you start driving. Get in the vans. I think all of the vans have the electronic mirrors that adjust themselves. Make sure they're set properly. Make sure you can see down the side of your vehicle. You don't want to see your vehicle other than maybe the very back corner. You want to see the road next to it. So don't take off without having your mirrors set and know that you can see. And then it is recommended that you always drive with the lights on in the van. So when you get in the van, even in the daytime, turn the lights on. It makes them more visible. Okay, you want to make sure people see you and see where you are. Seatbelt policies, get them on the van, tell them to buckle up. If they won't buckle up, don't drive. Just let them know. If you want to go, you will buckle up. I know when Deb takes the kindergarten to the library, all those kids, by the middle of the year, they know. They get in the seat and she hears that belt click. So make sure they're buckling up. Make sure they stay buckled up on the vans. I put in there just Virginia's child restraint and device law requirements as of recently. This is the most recent things. I think for us, because we're a school, we're exempt from some of that. Especially with car seats and some of the older kids. But make sure that if you're driving young children, like Quest or something somewhere, you're probably, if you're driving 3 or 4-year-olds, you're going to have car seats. So you're going to have to think about that when you're scheduling that trip to take those kids somewhere to do something. You're going to have the parents bring the child safety seats. I know in the daycare, if they take the little kids on a field trip, they always have the child safety seats. Okay, so make sure that you have those things. Seat belts, they have to be worn. Okay, if they're under 18 years of age, they have to be worn. They have to be worn by people over 18 years of age, but they'll ticket the person who's not wearing the seat belt if they're over 18. Under 18, they'll ticket you for the ones not wearing the seat belts. So make sure you have them buckled in. It is our church's policy that whenever you're on the vans, everybody's buckled up. Okay, if for some reason you have a vehicle and that vehicle does not have a working seatbelt, notify us. We will get the seatbelt either replaced or we'll get it fixed. So make sure that those things are applicable. Occupancy, never exceed the occupancy of the vehicle. If it's a 15-passenger van, you should have no more than 15 people. If it's a 12-passenger van, you should have no more than 12. So make sure that you're not exceeding the passenger limits on the van. We've already talked about backing up and using a spotter. Weather hazards. One of the biggest things with driving these things is when you get out in weather conditions. When you're out and you're traveling around and it starts raining, one of the things you want to do is you just want to slow down. You just want to take it a little bit slower, especially if you're driving with just a few people in the van. Why?
Less weight.
Less weight, so it's going to make them do what easier? Slide. Okay? And you're in one of those vans and you don't have a fully packed van. You're better off if it's fully packed, especially in bad weather, because it makes your van heavier and it makes it stay on contact with the road. If it's light, it's like driving a pickup truck. You can get the back end of a pickup truck to spin out almost any time you want because there's no weight to it. So if you have a lighter van, if you have less kids or you have little kids, be extremely cautious when driving in the rain because you are more susceptible to spinning out or sliding than if you're fully loaded. So make sure that you're cautious when you're driving in the rain. Again, make sure the windshield wipers are working so that you don't have to reach outside the bus and get the windshield wiper working again. We did get that fixed, right? Okay. If it is a hurricane coming through, cancel the trip. Don't go. You know, if we're going to have a tremendous amount of rain and they're saying that the rivers are going to be swelling and they're going to be flooding, cancel your trip. It's okay. It's okay to cancel the trip. Foggy conditions, we don't have that a lot around here, but we do have that occasionally. Keep your headlights on, keep them on low, and drive slowly. And use the road. I remember one time driving from Pennsylvania to Florida with my aunt, and we were in the mountains coming through, I think, southern Tennessee into Georgia somewhere on I-75, and it was so foggy we couldn't see the road. And so literally had the door open looking at the white line on the side of the road so that we could creep along at a slow rate of speed. That's not safe. Don't do that in the vans. But using the side of the road, if it gets really foggy while you're out somewhere, use the road. If it's too foggy, drive over, get off the road. Get way off the road. Don't just pull onto the berm because somebody else is going to hit you. And be patient. Don't go too far too fast. Hydroplaning, again, that's simply when the water gets under the wheels of the van and you start sliding all over the place. If that happens, get your foot off the gas pedal. Don't slam on the brakes. Resist the temptation if your van starts to veer out of control of slamming on the brakes, because typically all that does is send it into a spin. Just get off the gas, slow the vehicle down, let it get in touch with the road, and then correct your spin or whatever's happening. So just make sure you're going slow on the wet roads. Driving in windy conditions. These are high-profile vehicles. Guess what wind does to them? Blows them all over the place. Okay. If it's super windy, slow down. Okay, that's the proper response to all of these issues. Slow down, drive under control, don't make a lot of sudden moves. I can remember driving through the cornfields and soybean fields of Indiana when it was windy one time, and just it would be pushing the van over 3 or 4 feet. You know, a big gust of wind would hit and it would push you over. So beware, be conscious that it's windy. Make sure that you slow down and have good control of the vehicle when the winds are up. Driving in winter weather, basically if it's predicted that it's going to be snowing, cancel the event. Church policy, cancel the event. If it's going to snow, you're not going anywhere in the vans. If for some reason you're out somewhere and it starts snowing unexpectedly, which we have had happen in this area, make sure that you are driving extremely cautiously on the roads. If you have to, you stop and you wait for the roads to get cleared. Contact us if it's really bad. If for some reason you get stuck somewhere, just contact us. Brake gently. Again, we have anti-lock brakes on all these vans, so push steadily on the brake. Do not pump the brakes. Keep your lights on. Be very careful on bridges and overpass in the wintertime, because they can get icy in a hurry and you can hit some black ice and be spinning out of control. basically, if it's really cold outside and it's been wet, you just have to slow down and drive under control. Don't be running and trying to pass other people at a high rate of speed. All right. So basically, we just want you to drive under control while you're driving these vans. We want you to use good common sense when you're in these things. Our biggest goal is to ensure the safety of the passengers that we have. They're a precious cargo for us, and we want to make sure that we're being responsible in our driving and in how we're operating these vehicles, because we don't want to be that church on the news that had a 15-passenger van roll over because the driver was texting or something else was going on, or they were distracted, or they were driving too fast, or whatever. We take good care of our vehicles to make sure they're in good working order. We get the 10-ply tires that they put on ambulances. We spend a lot of extra money to make sure these vehicles are safe. Okay, so we're doing our part, and we're asking you to do your part. Drive under control, keep the vans under control, don't do reckless, crazy things while you're behind the wheel of the van. All right, thank you very much.